Thanks again for coming this afternoon, and it is my pleasure to introduce Dean Jonathan Levin of the Stanford Graduate School of Business.
Thanks. So I'm John Levin. I'm the Dean of the Business School, and to start by saying I'm just delighted to have this workshop here at Stanford, and so thank you to the DOJ team and the faculty and staff at the GSB and the law school who put the event together, and all the speakers and participants. I think, as you all know, we have a great need right now in this country to bridge the technology world of Silicon Valley and the policy world of Washington, D.C., and it's critical that we foster better understanding in both directions as we try to sort out the impact of new digital technologies. Stanford can and should be playing an important part in enabling that discussion, leading that discussion, and we take that responsibility very seriously. So I'm really, really glad that we get to host today's event. Now, I want to say a few things about the topic of today, and to do that, I'm going to take off my Stanford Dean hat and put on my economist hat for a moment or two, and just say one or two things, because I have to say, I started studying antitrust in graduate school 25 years ago, and at that time, I did not expect that I would ever see the words venture capital and antitrust in the same sentence. So something has changed. And now part of it is surely venture capital, because at that time, I also didn't anticipate that you'd have a private venture-backed firm that would be worth $50 billion. But a bigger part is really the changing technology landscape and the establishment of a handful of dominant tech firms that are attracting so much antitrust scrutiny. And when I have thought about that change, I have found it useful personally to disentangle three different factors, and I'll just mention them. The first is fundamentally technology. So things like the rise of data and algorithms raise a lot of complex questions about privacy or potential for discrimination or the effects of mediated discussion on political polarization or discourse. Those are important questions, and they would be important regardless of market structure and market power. These are fundamentally questions about technology. The second issue is really the size and the power of the largest tech firms. Those are related to technology in the sense that the technologies of data and software have significant scale economies, which of course give rise to concentration. And of course and then they therefore raise all of our typical economic concerns about when you have market power, leveraging it to block competition or block entry or monopolize adjacent markets. But actually I think that's not the fundamental issue that we're grappling with right now. The fundamental issue that we're grappling with right now is a concern that goes much deeper and really reflects a sort of fundamental public discomfort with having firms that are so large and that extend so deeply into people's lives, and having so many decisions concentrated in the hands of a small number of people, sometimes controlling shareholders. And that discomfort it's a political discomfort, not a fundamentally economic discomfort. And I think that's behind a lot of the public push for more antitrust intervention and regulatory intervention and the calls to break up firms. And I think it's useful to have that lens, because we shouldn't be surprised if antitrust enforcement adapts in response. And if in this audience, most people will know the history of US antitrust. But just to remind you of that, in the US antitrust, the origins go back to the late 19th century, in the Gilded Age, which was also a time when there was a rapid rise in inequality, the consolidation of a lot of economic and political power in a small number of hands, a lot of public discomfort without the rise of a lot of large firms. And people recognized at that time that the technologies, which were different, they were things like the railroads, had a lot of scale economies which made the economics of large firms favorable. But there was a lot of concern about the rise in inequality and about the concentration of political power. And it was those latter concerns that were the ones that were behind the Sherman Act, and then subsequently under Roosevelt, under the enforcement of the Sherman Act, which wasn't enforced for 15 years, but it's getting into the early 20th century with the Northern Securities case and then the breakup of American Tobacco and Standard Oil. And so the world has changed a lot in 130 years. The technologies are very different. We've had several decades now, many decades now, of relatively narrow antitrust enforcement that's been almost exclusively on economic grounds and not on political economy grounds. But I think there's probably a lesson to be learned by what happened at the beginning of antitrust if you were projecting forward. And so if I was to make that projection forward, it makes me even more happy that before embarking on that course or in the process of embarking on the course, if that is the course that gets followed, that the DOJ would reach out to us to want to listen and learn from a lot of people and think really carefully through all of the ways things might go, and that we get a chance to be part of that discussion and to host it here at Stanford. So really, really delighted to have you all here, and I'm really excited to hear what this afternoon's panelists have to say about these issues. So thanks a lot for being here.